Thanks for tuning into this episode of Through Jeremiah's Eyes. Today I am joined by an incredible friend and future leader in this world. Today we are going to talk about gifted and talented programs within the education system and their effects on students within and outside of those programs. So Tahira, if you could introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Tahira Jones, a junior animal science student here at North Carolina A&T.
Thank you for joining me.
Of course.
So, just to kick off the episode, how was your experience and your relationship with school as you were growing up?
It was, at the beginning, it was pretty tough because from the earliest years I remember being in elementary school, the gifted and talented program kind of really stuck with me and definitely shifted how I saw myself as a student in education. Especially having friends as part of the gifted and talented program, and then only getting to talk to them or see them at recess or maybe early in the morning. So that definitely stuck with me, but it definitely gave me a drive to be the person I am today regarding education.
Tough. Did you like going to school? You like learning?
I do for the most part, but I like experiential learning. I don't really like to just to get lectured all the time. I feel like it's kind of counterproductive regarding education, or at least for me. And I'm also a visual learner, so it kind of goes hand in hand, because if I'm looking at a visual and then you don't explain what it is or why it's a visual, then I'm kind of be lost. But for the most part, I'd rather have a visual explaining what you want me to learn as opposed to a whole lecture or word paragraph.
Yeah. I feel the exact same way. I'm a very visual learner. And then same thing with the experiential learning. Mm-hmm. I'd rather do stuff and then learn from that, right, as opposed to just being told from a PowerPoint lecture.
Yeah.
Because just for me, that one doesn't stick with me, and the two is boring, right, in my opinion.
Right.
How about now? Is it the same? Has it always been the same? Being a visual learner and wanting to get that experiential learning? Or...
For the most part, yeah, it's I do much better as far as educational matters, being hands-on. That's why I want to pursue as since high school. I know in my high school in Texas, they had kind of animal production classes, if you can call it. So that's how I got really big on agriculture education. And I don't know if you ever took ag ed classes in high school. Really? That's crazy. Well, for the most part, it's a lot hands-on. So it's we didn't have a farm in our school backyard or anything, but my ag teacher, she was also our advisor for FFA. She made sure that, for example, we went to a Texas State Fair and got to see all the goats and the pigs and sheep and horses. And also in class, she'll make sure that we were I don't know, just getting engaged, doing arts and crafts while also playing into agriculture education. I remember one class she had us do the skeletal system of a horse, and it was huge all across the desk. It was just really fun. So I'd rather do that than just look at numbers or words all day. So but yeah, I'd say it definitely has not changed much. I've always wanted to be a veterinarian, and in high school I was okay, and then I got to college and I was oof, maybe this isn't a works, but I still love animal science because I still love to be a visual learner.
I was gonna say for what was it? Oh, the horse skeleton thingy, that. The fact that you're able to recall that, yeah, that it shows that those are the types of things that stick with you. Right. And I feel maybe not for everybody, mm-hmm, but at least for me, that's the same exact way. So specific stuff that I do that I've done in elementary or middle school or, yeah, high school, I remember those specific things when I have something that I'm actually physically doing, mm-hmm, and applying to learning, as opposed to what I read in the textbook.
Right.
For me, that doesn't work. It's the same way why I don't really test well with multiple choice tests.
Right.
Because when you ask me to pick between 4 answers, that all could be correct, right, for all different reasons. Yeah. I'm I have no idea which one I'm supposed to pick. But if you put me in front of something where I actually have to do it and apply what I know, mm-hmm, then I can do a lot better. Right. But that's also, I don't know, that's just how I work.
Right.
But so you were never identified as a quote unquote gifted or quote unquote talented, yeah, student throughout elementary, middle, or high school?
No, I wasn't. It was really hard for me. I think because it was all subjective. it was like a matter of testing. So like I will never forget like being in one of those like portables outside of school, like the classrooms that I was in, and they gave us a multiplication test. There's like 5 or 6 rows of just like simple like 3rd grade math, and I was like having such a hard time, and I was like so upset because the most students who got the most correct had their name on the wall, and it was like gold, silver, and bronze, and like I was so hard on myself, and my mom was shoving these multiplication cards down my throat, and she was like, you're gonna study division, multiplication, and fractions, which also like I hated, like I don't know, math, and I just always had a pretty rough relationship. And I remember like one time doing like the bare minimum, like decent enough to get a bronze.
On the board?
Yes, and I was just so happy, and I showed it to my mom. I was like, look, I made it. Like it's stuff like that I was like, it kind of like ruined my relationship with education, because now it became more about recognition and accomplishment as opposed to actually learning.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of messed me up. But yeah, I never been deemed like a gifted or talented student, quote unquote, except besides like I think 8th grade history, I was in an honors class, but they weren't really honors class. They just learned at a faster pace than like the regular classes. I didn't really realize that until 8th grade, and I was like, wow, what a setup. like I just thought it was just so stupid. I was like, why have it if we're just going to learn the material at the end of the day anyway? So yeah, I was never deemed or qualified, even like now at A&T, but I don't know, now I'm like perceptive of, should we even have like a gifted and honor talented program or honor system, quote unquote, for school?
Yeah, because I was going to say, back in elementary school, I remember we had to take a test.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what it was. I feel like it was math, maybe science, maybe reading, or like English, whatever.
Right.
But then I took it, and then I got put in like the gifted and talented program. So they like take us out of class to be able to go do these different things, which were fun. But it was also weird because I would have friends, and some of my friends I was closest with weren't in the gifted and talented program. So when they weren't, we had it was called SCOPE. I don't even know what it stands for. But we would be taken out of class to be able to do these different things through elementary school, middle school. And it was like, those moments, they stuck with me, but at the same time, like the way that it made me feel, it was like, I got the recognition, but at the same time I felt isolated because it was only a select number of students that I was around pretty much all the time. But then I was out of touch with the like mass majority of students. I was like, this is weird. Like, why am I different from everybody else?
Right.
But I feel like with my mom and dad, the way I was raised and everything, they helped me with all of that.
That's good.
But I guess in my perspective of being in those programs, I appreciated it, but at the same time, it's weird. Because it's always going to be the balance when you try and separate somebody from somebody else, and who's to say that one person isn't as gifted and talented as somebody else, and basing that off of a test when you're in elementary school. I've always had like a weird relationship with that. It's always been weird. And I even talk about it like now with within the scholarship program, because a lot of us were in those gifted and talented programs. We're like, how do you identify somebody back in elementary school through a standardized test, which we're learning about? Now they don't really show how smart somebody is. Like, my GPA is definitely not the highest, but I was identified as a gifted and talented student.
Right.
I don't know, but I have the same like, I have a weird relationship with like gifted and talented programs, especially in elementary and middle school. I feel like when we get to the college level, it's more so of a choice of if you want to do the like honors requirements and all that different type of stuff. I feel like that's a different story, but elementary and middle school, to me it feels weird. It worked, but at the same time it kind of isolates some people, and not everybody has the same support group as everybody else. Everybody's not as privileged as other people and have the same resources. So that's also weird. So would you say that social aspect like kind of made you like not stunted in a way, but you had to work harder at being more sociable or extroverted as opposed to like
not being with the general population of students and learning about those personalities and differences in people?
So I would say, for the most part, most people in scope, like, we all got really close because that was kind of like those were our people that we just saw like pretty much every day.
Right.
But then everybody else, like when we tried to integrate, or at least from my perspective, when I tried to integrate with everybody else, like I wouldn't know what was going on. I didn't know what like little kid drama was going on or anything.
Right.
So like I couldn't maintain or be engaged in those conversations with everybody else. I wasn't around a whole bunch of different variety of people all the time. So probably did. When I was younger, I was more introverted. Now I feel like there's like a scale, and there's the middle, and extrovert is on the right, introvert is on the left. I feel like I'm in the middle between the middle of the entire thing and extroverted, just because I like talking.
Yeah,
I don't care about it. I'll talk to you if I don't even know you.
Right.
But I feel like that's just me. How do you feel like not being in the like gifted and talented program affected you, and like how you went about like social life, I guess?
Well, I think for the most part, for elementary school, it was kind of hard. Like kind of like you, there were like the gifted and talented students over here, and then like the common core classes or classmates were like on one side. So I think like it kind of had me grown apart from my friends that were like in the gifted and talented, because I didn't see them as frequently as I did like as the other students. So I think for the most part, I was kind of like glad that I didn't hang too much time with the gifted and talented students, even though like there were still children, like for the most part. But I was glad that I didn't have to worry about like academic pressure, because like I feel like you will start to compare yourself to like your friends or your peers, and then that can go into like resentment, and it's like out of like misplaced anger and stuff. So it's just like I'm kind of glad that I was in that program with my friends, because I feel like I would have had to end those friendships, because it's like I'm too academic competitive with you right now, and it's just causing all this tension. And I don't know, like we're in elementary school, like we shouldn't have to worry about that. So I'm kind of glad I have to worry about that. And even in middle school, I think that's when my mom kind of like started to put a little more pressure, because I guess you can kind of see that I did want to be academically excellent. So she would like start to tell me like, oh, so show interest in this class or this teacher that they're teaching for honors. Because basically for my middle school, your teacher had to recommend you for the honors class. Yeah, so it wasn't like you can just take a test or anything, and like they had to see that you had potential to be an honor student. So I think maybe I was in more honors classes, but I'm glad that I wasn't in those honors classes, at least for like math and reading. And maybe I was in math and reading, but I don't know, I don't think so. Or math and English, sorry, not reading. Because there was definitely like, I don't want to say segregation, but there was definitely a demographic of students that were in honor classes rather than not. So I think being amongst like the Black students or people of color or students of color was better than being like with predominantly like white classroom, especially since it's like not only do you have to be an honor student in a predominantly white classroom, but you have to be like academically excellent. So it's like too many pressures for me that I think I would be able to deal with.
And like now that was a bar. So from elementary school, from getting put in like the honors program, it was always I was like either one or two of the only Black kids in the entire thing, and that always felt weird because obviously, even though there were still barely any Black kids in the school,
right? It
was like I saw other Black kids that looked like me that I could relate to, but they weren't in the gifted and talented program. And then middle school, when I was taking an honors class and everything, same thing. And then in high school, when I was in AP and DE classes, I had literally I saw the same exact people in every class. And for the Black students, there were the few of us that were taking AP and DE classes.
Right.
But at the same time, that's isolating because you see the majority of the Black students weren't taking these AP and DE classes. But I also feel like that's kind of the education system.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely a whole nother topic we can get into. But yeah, I agree with you, especially since like I took an AP class in high school, and I don't know what I thought, but I definitely dropped out like the first semester because it was just way too much work. Like especially since they kind of promote it as like this is what college is like, and this is a course load you're going to be expected. So I was like, okay, it's good to have that exposure and to kind of build my work ethic. But like looking at it, it was just way too much. I mean, they expect us to do like 20 pages every other day, and then do like a word or spelling quiz like every other, or pop spelling quiz. So you don't even know, you just have to study all the words, and maybe you have a quiz, maybe you don't. So it was just like all this, like it was just way too much. And then the lectures we would have, I don't remember like the time that we had for class. Maybe it was like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. But it was just like way too much information. Yes. And I was just like, I'm in ninth grade. Like, I'm a 15-year-old. Like, I cannot condense this much information, especially since 8th grade history, which I took AP. It was like AP. It was something, not human geography. I think it was
human geography.
I think it was. I'm not sure. I think it was like AP history or something.
US history?
No, it wasn't US. It was like world history.
Oh yeah, there's AP world.
Yeah, AP world, and I was just like way too much work. So maybe it was 10th grade, but even then, I'm like way too young. You know, a little geography class. It wasn't AP, but it was like the Common Core geography class, and she was telling us like, look at this map and what continent is this? And then it just jumped to like all of world history condensed like this hour and a half class. So that was just like insane. So I'm glad I dropped out, but it's just like, it was insane how they kind of did that. And like you said, there was like me and one other like black student. So I dropped out of that. In my spring semester, I went to like the Common Core world history class, and I found people, like, there were all these, like, people of color, black people, so, yeah, it was just insane. And for I don't know about you, but for, like, the AP classes I took, it was predominantly Asian students. So I was like, whoa. I was like, oh, my gosh. And they're very, at least the ones that I would talk to and were in classes with, they're very academically competitive with everybody, so it was just like a very toxic educational environment.
Yeah. And I feel like the same way with my high school was predominantly white though. But the comparison and competitiveness just got like, I could see it in elementary school, in middle school. Like we would always compare like our tests. We had like multiplication tables, like speed math.
Yeah.
You played the 24 game. We had like four questions or 4 numbers on the card. You had to like add and multiply and subtract and divide
to be able
to get to 24.
I don't think I played it. I think I've definitely heard about it though.
So we used to do those two, and they're like different difficulties. So we always be competing and all that type of stuff, which helped make us better. But at the same time, it got toxic over time, and those same people kind of like moved up with me. So I saw like the growth. I could see my growth like retrospectively. But in high school, when I really noticed, and everybody was so competitive, and it wasn't, I want to be really good, and I also want you to be really good. It was, I want to be really good, even if that means that you're not as good as me. And I'm going to let you know that I'm better than you, and I got a higher test score than you. I'm going to let you know that my class rank is higher than you.
Right.
So it just got like toxic at a point. But one of the things I like about the honors program here, I feel like at HBCU, it's kind of different because everybody looks like me, so it's like, this is dope.
Right. That's the one.
But another thing that I'm learning, or that I learned when I came here, was like there are black people from all different economic backgrounds, viewpoints, opinions, education levels. People love learning, people don't like learning. There are different people that are interested in engineering and animal science and agriculture and education, a whole bunch of different types of things.
Right.
But I also noticed that even though I had this scholarship and I'm in the honors program, there are also people outside the honors program that should be, in my opinion, in the honors program.
Oh man. I think that's. Oh, sorry. You were gonna say?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, but that doesn't make, just simply because you're in a honors program or something, that doesn't make you better or smarter than the next person. Mm-hmm. It's just another label. That, to me, labels shouldn't really have power over anybody, which is kind of what I talked about in the last podcast episode. Or I hit on that a little bit, but not being confined by those labels. If you have that label or if you don't have a label, what does it matter? Just be you. Do what you do, and then make what you want happen. Right. What were you about to say?
Yeah. Well, I was saying, it's funny you said that because, like I mentioned in the chat, maybe I should have been an honors student because I got invited to the honors convocation, and I was like, kind of like the imposter syndrome we were feeling because I asked me, "What you see going?" He was like, "No." I'm like, "The honor students are going. Like, why should I?" So I was like, "Oh, maybe I should." But I think having that mentality of, I think that honor systems are kind of toxic in a way, and that I see like what y'all have to do, and I'm like, if I have to put that much academic pressure on myself, I would probably just like burn out or just drop out of the honors. It's like the whole contracts y'all have and the expectation that y'all have to carry, and then all the lecture series. It's just like, I think I wouldn't mind the label, but I feel like for all the work that I would have to do, it's just kind of like, oh man, I'll be like super burnt out. So I think that's having that. And then also, like I said, like those AP classes, and then seeing like my Asian American peers at high school, like having a mental breakdown because they're not the 10% of the class, is just like, I saw how that impacted them and how they viewed education and how they view themselves as a person and their identity. So it's like, I guess I kind of just have that, I'm kind of like rejecting that whole like honor system and all that good stuff. But I do have moments where I'm like, maybe I should have, especially since it's like a badge of honor.
Yeah, I feel like the same way, or sort of the same way. Mm-hmm. But I forgot what I was about to say. I feel like the problem with honors is or any type of label like that, is when it comes with you feeling like you have to meet somebody else's expectations. Because through honors, I'm going to keep the GPA that I have no matter if I'm in honors or if I'm not in honors. Right. I always want to do well. Right. In the community service, I like volunteering, so I'm going to volunteer for like the lecture series and everything. I like listening to people speak, because then it also gives me an opportunity to learn about public speaking. So I'm like, that works. In the cultural events, I like experiencing different things. So it's like I'm doing all those things. I don't even think of them as honors requirements. It's just stuff that I would already do, but I'm integrating it into, now I'm an honor student. Right. And I don't know, that's like, I feel like with honors, I feel like a big problem within it is people feeling like they're expected to do this one thing and then like beating themselves up over it. Like how you were saying people are having breakdowns. That was the same thing that was happening in my high school. And I was like, your education doesn't define you. This isn't like solely you. Right. You're still you, whether you do bad on a test, you just learn from it and then move past it. That's just something that I've been trying to do with pretty much everything in my life. Now if I want to do something, I'm going to do it, whether people want me to or not, whether it's aligned with what my major is, which is just another label in my opinion. I'm going to do it. And for example, tests. I can fail a test, and then guess what? I don't care. Right. I know what I have to do, but I'm not going to try and wallow on the test. Right. Whether I have to meet a GPA requirement or if I don't have to meet a GPA requirement. I know what I have to do, so I feel like there's no point in spending time I don't know. Yeah. You get the idea. I just be rambling. Yeah. So as far as like you saying like you like to do speaker series or lecture series and cultural events and volunteering. So do you think kind of like the honor system, if it's built upon that, do you think it matters at all? Like I understand like the GPA requirement and all that good stuff, but it's like, do you think it's sustainable because I feel like the average student for the most part wouldn't mind donating a couple of cans of food to a food drive or to go to a community garden and plant some seeds or what have you. So like, do you think it's going to be
kind of like obsolete in the future. Like people gonna be like, I do that regardless. Like I don't need an honor student, and then kind of like collapse on himself.
I feel like I just have a problem with the education system as a whole. But I feel like for honors, I feel like that distinction needs to have more freedom within it. Because, for example, all the stuff that you do, like, I feel like that should classify you as an honors student, even though it's not going to these lecture series, doing these cultures, like, that there should be some sort of, like
leadership element to it?
Yeah, just like, everybody does different stuff. Everybody's interested in different things.
Right.
So if a student, like we know the students that are going out of their way and making change and doing these outside experiences and getting all these opportunities. And I feel like that should be identified as an honors student. I feel like it should have more flexibility as opposed to meet this, and you're an honors student.
Right.
But at the same time with that, I don't know how feasible that is because there still has to be some sort of measurable outcome to be able to have a distinction like honors. Or, for example, you can't say maintain a good GPA, impact the community, and lead. You have to have, like, meet a GPA requirement and then, like, be on an e-board for, like, 2 years or do, like, however many community service hours. Like, those are measurable goals.
Right.
And I don't really know how to make a universal system that encompasses all the different things that people can do that would make everybody that deserves to, I don't know, because deserving to be recognized is weird.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know.
Yeah, it should be.
But I feel like it would have to change in the future or like evolve and grow, especially with all honors programs growing. I feel like they have to develop them in a way. I don't even know.
Yeah.
There's so much, but the education system's changing. Standardized tests are changing, so I don't even know if GPA is going to really be a thing because not everybody's a good test taker. I'm not a good test taker.
Yeah, that's
like you thought all my test grades, I may have a 4.0.
Right. Literally.
But
yeah,
we'll see.
I felt that. Yeah, a good point of like the standardized testing because, like, literally, I was like, not to look down on my HBCUs, but I was like, I knew that my SAT score was enough to get into like the school I did want to go to, like when I was a freshman, sophomore, like Texas A&M. But it's funny, like when I look back, because it's like I was in high school, like why was I putting my whole identity and self-worth into this SAT score? I mean, of course it all worked out because I loved A&T, I want to change it for the world, but I would look back and be like, what if they did say we want a 1,500 or 1,400 or more? So it's like, I want to have the opportunity because I'm like, you're not very good at test taker. I can't work in complete silence. I hate time to test. Yes. So it's just like, I don't know. It kind of sucks how, like, after a while, so much testing and so much, you can only get into the school if, you're worth this much of a number. It's like, I don't know, very unmotivational because it's like, I don't know, you have to give up on that theory of I'm just a number or I can only do so much if my scores are high. Yeah, and especially with the SAT and ACT, I started learning like the mindset I have now started in like my junior year of high school. And I took the SAT in my senior year. I didn't study for it, not a single bit, because I was like, standardized testing, I don't really understand what it is. I'm either going to know the information or I'm not going to, so I just took it. ACT, took it. And then for GPA, like I would do my best in the classes. But then of course, like whatever, I'm going to try and do my best. Right. But at the end of the day, whatever I get is whatever I get. So that's just like the mentality that I try and keep now. It's just like, I don't like standardized tests. Like, literally. At all. I want to be able to apply what I know. Right. Because I may not have the best grades, but if you put me in a situation where I need to lead or I need to execute a
like task. If you want me to build a skeleton of an animal, right, I'll do that. But if you want to ask me a multiple choice question about it,
right,
I don't know if I could do that. And that's not a knock on me.
Right.
And the same thing as you're saying with the time test, because I highly dislike time tests, because it's like, why are you going to put a timer on a test when all my knowledge is up here?
Right.
It's just a matter of me taking the time to put it on the paper.
Literally.
So it's like, why can't I just have unlimited time to do this? And you have to go through a whole process. Something has to be deemed wrong with you by somebody.
Exactly.
And it's like, or you have to have a certain reason. And it's like, how am I supposed to communicate that I have like testing anxiety, or I'm not the best test taker when the system's kind of made for that? And standardized tests in general, they have, for SATs, they got SAT books, but not everybody has money for some $200 books to be able to take a test. The GRE, which I'm having to take for vet school, same thing. Like, not everybody has that amount of money to be able to prepare for those things. And when you look at it from a racial disparity in the economy and everything,
it's awful.
All I'm saying is that's another reason why we're not able to get to the point where, or that makes it difficult to get to the point where we need to be, because we're not able to access the same education that would fit the system, because it's pretty much based off of grades and standardized tests. I don't even know if I'm explaining everything.
No, definitely. Kind of play back to what you said, to like the time testing and like something has to be deemed wrong with you. I took a community college class for math because I need to take statistics. So I was like, oh my god! So I got to figure out how to do like algebra 1 for like at my community college, which was great. But I like bombed the first test, and I was like so heartbroken. I was like, oh my gosh! And because we only had like 50 minutes to take it or something, so I just felt rushed, and my brain, I don't know why, I guess it's like kind of takes its time with like digesting information. And then if you give me like a minute to sit there and think about everything I've learned and studied and looked at, my brain will slowly start to put the puzzle pieces together. So I remember telling my professor, we're like, hey, is there a learning center I can go to where I don't have to be like timed or something of that sort? Like, I'm just in a better environment, because, you know, we got people next to me like writing all these answers down. I'm like, oh my god, like you're already done, and people getting up and walking out the door, and I don't know, it's just too much like external environment noise. So it's like I started doing better performing better on the test, because I could take as much time as I needed when I went to like the learning center. But it's like kind of sad how you have to be written off. I mean, luckily I didn't have to like say I had a disability or anything. He just was like, let me do it by the gracious of his heart.
Yeah.
But it's just stuff like that I'm like thinking about. It's just like kind of sad how people aren't performing well because their environment is just so poor.
And then you get penalized for that.
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. So yeah, and I want to ask you, like, as far as like, I know for me, I know like my sister's like sometimes jokes on me, like, you have to make race like an issue with everything, but like it is, at least for me, and how I like realize people perceive me as. So for you, when you were in those classes, and then maybe hypothetically even now as a college student, if you were at PWI, like how would you make sure to stay true to yourself? Because I feel like sometimes Black people get in those spaces where it's predominantly white, and then their mentality starts to shift and their morals become compromised. So how do you stay true to yourself? Like, no, I want to stay true to myself.
I would say through elementary, middle school, and high school, I was like labeled like the white Black kid, literally just because I was smart, and it was weird. But in those AP classes, that's who I was able to hang around, because that's who was in all my classes. But I feel like, again, junior year of high school, I just got to a point where I was like, nah, I'm me because I don't know. I'm me because everything that makes me, which is my family, And also, as you were saying, looking at myself from the outside perspective, if you just look at me, I'm this tall, skinny black guy, like 6'1",
right.
but I feel like that can sometimes be intimidating when you look at somebody that's like 6'1", and with society's perceptions and everything, with like implicit bias and everything.
Right.
I'm a black male, which also translates some stuff. But I just try and be me. I try and be as nice as I am. Be like, of course, genuinely me, which I'm just a naturally happy and nice guy.
Right.
But if somebody tries to cross me, then I can articulate myself in a way that's respectful, but also doesn't stray away from who I am as a person. I know the whole thing about code switching has been like a big topic. I don't code switch. I feel like I used to, but now I don't care where I am. The way I dress in professional settings, even no matter what room I walk into, no matter what anybody in the room looks like, I'm going to bring me and how I want to look. Right. So usually every time I go to like a conference or anything, I always have my twist. If I have on a suit, sometimes I'll have on my Jordans just because that's what makes me. Right. And I'll say stuff like dope just because I don't know, that's me. That's how I talk to my family. That's how I talk to everybody. That's like part of my culture. So I don't ever try and mask who I am for somebody else because I got to make sure that I'm okay. And if you don't accept me for me, then that's not my problem. That's your loss. I hope that you accept me for me because I'm accepting you for you. Right. So there's no reason why I feel like I should change, no matter if I'm the only black person in the room or if I'm in a room full of black people. I'm an articulate, well-educated leader that wants to do a whole bunch of different stuff. Right. That is a 6'1" black male, skinny, happy guy. And that's me. And I'm probably gonna face that in vet school unless I end up going to Tuskegee. But I'm gonna just be the best me that I can be. No matter what about you? Right. You going to grad school? I'm kind of like you. At first, I believed and I did code switching and kind of conform to kind of make sure I was perceived as being like docile or like not a problem, as like, or stereotyped as often like black woman face, like I don't want to be seen as like aggressive or anything or angry. So like I'm kind of like you, I'm kind of like unapologetically black now because the HBCUs have grown, because I've realized, especially with like the last year or 2 years ago now, like the murder of George Floyd, it's like no matter what we do, how we do it, or how we say it, or how we go about it, it's like you're never going to get that approval that you think you're looking for. So so that's like I'm going to take with me, because I don't want to say play the game, but as far as like, I do kind of like you, kind of like make sure I have a job and that I'm learning and growing and thriving, but at the same time, it's kind of like to not have people walk over you and to make sure to speak up and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's how I'm going to carry it. And then also to like not be paranoid, because I had some friends like back in high school who were like always conscious of themselves to the point where it was like, are you even living? Like, you're just constantly being paranoid. Like, I don't know, I guess I was kind of stuck in that headspace too, like I said earlier. But now I'm like, you just have to live. Like, you have to breathe. Like, you can't constantly be paranoid, looking over your shoulder and hearing voices in your head. Like, you can't, like, you're gonna drive yourself down a rabbit hole. So I don't want that to happen for me. So I'm like, I'm going to move in a way to where it's like intentional, that I am aware of being a black woman, but then also like trying to figure out how to take up space and be unapologetic about it. Yeah. Like even in interviews, I feel like that most of the stuff that I do is unconventional. Like interviews, there are like different methods you can use for interviews. I just have a conversation with the person. Yeah. And I know that growing up, and even just talking to different people, they're like, you need to get your hair cut, because I right now have like an afro. Right. Like you need to get your hair cut. You need to look, this way you need to talk, and this way you need to do the interviews in this step-by-step method to make sure you ensure the highest chance of success of getting a job or internship or whatever opportunity it is.
Right.
And that's just not me. So I've just been like, yeah, no, I can't do that. I'm gonna do my stuff my way, and I just hope that everybody like finds that as well as able to be, as you were saying, unapologetically Black.
Right.
If that's 2 words, unapologetically Black, if you were Black, please do that.
Right.
You will find so much like peace in that, because you're gonna be able to be yourself. You're not gonna be, as you were saying, like paranoid, looking over your shoulder, always wondering if you're doing okay or seeking approval, that you're never actually going to get or hear what you actually think that you want to hear. You don't even know what you really want to hear.
Right.
That's just like a fact of life in general too. But this has been a great conversation.
Oh my gosh, so funny.
If you could change something specific about the education system in America, what would it be?
Well, I would say first, I don't know how, it's not going to be easy. I don't know what the implementation will look like. But first, I would tell schools to require critical race theory and to show the whole picture. Especially since ironically, I got my U.S. history taught to me by Texas Education, which was very interesting. And yeah, they definitely had a demographic or target audience in mind when they taught the U.S. history and like all the wars. And it's like very interesting point of view as far as how they kind of saw themselves as like the whole man from necessity and like the Korean War and Vietnam War, and like how we just saw ourselves as just a victim in every single way. So I think definitely critical race theory I would teach, especially given our history as like Black Americans. It's a lot of sugarcoat, and even like the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s, a lot of just misinformation. So I would definitely teach that, and I will also make a requirement amongst educational schools. But I will also probably abolish the whole gifted and talented programs, especially since, like yourself, there are exceptions of like people of color and minorities getting into those programs. But for the most part, I feel like it is subjective, and even if it is subconscious, like for the most part, majority of students that are in those programs are not going to be Black or people of color or have a diverse thought, they call it nowadays. So I would probably abolish that system, because it's like, not only are you Black in America, but you're constantly being told that you're not talented or you're not gifted or you don't deserve to have books that aren't scribbled with explicit, you just deem yourself as not worthy. And I feel like when you get older, you're like, I am worthy. But when you're 9, 10, like
it's like it's training.
Exactly. So like throughout your whole life, you just deem yourself as just educationally stunted or not worthy. So I would definitely abolish that. And I think those would be like my 2 main things that I would change. And then also to like pour into Black and brown youth, especially from a Black American standpoint, because we're not a monolith. But I think for me personally, I think I could best reach target audience of Black Americans in suburbia or rural or inner cities, because I feel like given our history with America, it's very painful to kind of gain the economic or academic success without having some, looking within yourself and being like, okay, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. So I definitely think I would pour into that. How? I'm not sure yet, but I would definitely try to figure out a way.
I would echo some of the points that you're making, especially the pouring into Black youth from a young age. Because as you were saying, like you get kind of isolated from the jump. And speaking for somebody that was in those honors programs, even though I was in the honors program, which was already a select amount of students, I was the only Black kid or the only one of 2 Black kids in that. So that's like double isolation.
Right.
And not everybody's as fortunate as me, and I'm able to recognize that with like the family support system that I had, or the area that I grew up, or the school system that I was in. Because the school system that I was in, the education, amazing. People. But like just that in general. I want to be able to pour into the Black youth, just to try and get them to the point of being themselves and that they're worthy of, one, it's okay for them to be smart, and two, it's okay for them to be themselves and be Black and be proud of that.
Yes.
I want to get them to that point at the youngest age as I can, because then that just exponential growth curve after that.
Exactly.
Another thing, even though it's not specifically within the education system, I want to work on the school to prison pipeline, because it's flooded with the Black students.
Yes.
And it's like once they initially get into it, it's so hard to break out of it.
Yes.
So I want to try and, I feel like helping the Black youth and getting to that point will also tie into that.
Yeah.
And then also with standardized tests, I don't like standardized tests. I want to figure out some way to be able to qualitatively measure like what a student does, as opposed to quantitatively measuring that through multiple choice tests, because you can't really gauge how much somebody knows. Pretty much everything that we've been saying this whole entire podcast,
right?
You can't really gauge somebody's knowledge or intellectual capabilities or personality or anything, how they work in a team, based off of a standardized test.
Right.
So I want to be able to make programs that will help with that. And then also in terms of teachers, I feel like there needs to be a more diverse teacher workforce, I guess you can call it.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I remember every single Black teacher in every single one of my schools, I know them by name. And it's like, that's crazy, because there are hundreds of teachers that have been in the different schools that I've been in. But I specifically remember the Black teachers at each of those schools. Right. And it's crazy. I'm like, what if I saw Black teachers and Black professionals that came in to speak to us? Right. What if I was able to see that from a young age? How would I be now, today? Tying into being unapologetically Black and being proud of being Black. Right. And that's okay to be a smart Black kid. Right. At a young age. Right. That's good. I like ties.
That's good. Yeah. Especially that prison pipeline. Jesus Christ. It's just awful.
Yeah. It's wild. Like, crazy. But I wrap up every episode with 2 questions. Okay. So everybody gets mad because they're deep questions. But first question. What are 3 things that you live by, or your 3 keys to life?
My 3 keys to life. Yes. That's rough. Me thinking is hard. Don't really think it. I would say first one is to, like we've kind of been saying this entire podcast, be unapologetically Black, and wherever that is. So there's a lot of intersections for being Black, and be African, have the descendant, first generation, Caribbean, or if you're queer, it's like take up that space and be unapologetically about it, because that's something I'm still learning to do, because I'm pretty introverted. So like, I don't know if that ever happens to you, but like something will happen and then I don't peep it until like 2 hours later. I'm like, wait a minute, that person was talking crazy to me and I just didn't say anything. So to be unapologetically Black, and 2, be curious, be inquisitive, and be insightful. It's always good to ask questions and to always stay curious and to listen to people and what they have to say and what their experiences is like for who they are as a person. And 3, I would have to say, I don't know. Do I have a third one? I'm not sure I do. Well, I would say, I don't know, I would swim for my third one.
It's not a time test, you can take your time.
No, literally. Like, maybe it'll come to me. I would say for me, well, all of these can apply to my life as these keys, but I would say always pivot and don't have analysis paralysis or paralysis analysis. Like, don't overthink everything, kind of like what I just did just now. Like, just let life be life. I think Gen Z especially, and even younger generations, they want their job to be just existing and to just be a person of this earth. So not always like falling victim to capitalism and being burnt out. So I think definitely don't let yourself or let your mind like paralyze you to where you're just over analyzing everything.
Yeah. Book recommendation for that. The Paradox of Choice. It's also a TED Talk. Really good one.
Okay, good.
But it talks about like having, especially in today's day and age, having so many options that instead of picking one and going for it, you just sit there and look at all the different options. But it was really good.
Yeah.
But next question, final question. If you could have a conversation with a 12-year-old you, it's like finishing up middle school, about to get into high school,
God.
What would it be about, and what advice would you give and why?
First of all, I hope I would either listen to myself. To 12-year-old Tahira. I would kind of reassure myself. The whole overthinking, paralysis analysis definitely impacted my life a lot, to the point where it's like I look back and I'm like, I didn't even need to be that pressed. So I would tell myself to relax, take a step back, and to realize that the future is bright, and that to be more sure of myself and not to lose that confidence. So yeah.
But thank you so much for joining me on this podcast episode, sharing your precious knowledge, being an amazing friend, and also just sharing your time with me in general.
Always.
Anything that you would like to promote, shameless plugs that you have going on that you'd like to say something about, or last words that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Well, I don't know your audience is, but I would say everybody shake the table. I would